Welcome back, everybody, to episode 33 of the Punching Down podcast. It's late. It's early Tuesday morning. It's late. I normally record these Monday night, but I kind of was dawdling a bit. I was watching some stuff on the news, getting all prepared up for the podcast. So it's 1 a.m. right now. The big news right now, Amy Coney Barrett is now on the Supreme Court, which I honestly don't really give a shit about this stuff. They're just, you watch the news and that's what they're talking about. They're talking about Amy Coney Barrett. People on my Twitter are very upset about it. They're not happy. Basically, it's right now. It's just like this is my Twitter, okay, and I do this on purpose, and I find it like odd that people don't do this on purpose. But like, I have a lot of people I follow on Twitter that I don't agree with stuff they say. I'm just curious what they're saying, but like I don't like it. It doesn't like offend me what they say. I'm just like interested in, the opinions of people's. Of stuff like I don't agree with, I want to know what other sides of arguments are. Oh man, I'm already touching my face. I was doing the video for this last week and I'm like, man, I do touch my face so much. And I know the whole thing with like COVID when they started is like, you can't touch your face or whatever. But now they're like, I guess you can go back to touching. I just did it again. But so I'm touching my face a lot. So I was like, you know what? You're not going to touch your face this episode. And then I made it, I don't know, what do we got? Minute and change in and already touching the face. So you know what? Might have to live with that. But so the Amy Coney Barrett thing. I follow these people on Twitter. A lot of people who I don't agree with. Both sides of the aisle. But so basically I'd say it's not even. I'd say because of, I'm in comedy. 90% of comedians are pretty out there on the left, I would say, at least the ones that I know. So, maybe it shakes down 75-25, something like that. But so all the left-leaning people on my Twitter are very upset about this Amy Coney Barrett thing. They're like, this is not fair. Fuck them. They're like, blah, blah. They're like, the Supreme Court's illegitimate. They're like, and it just reeks of the whole, like, your side lost, so want to take the ball and go home. Like, that's what it really feels like, too. It's just that whole thing where they're like, oh, because, like, if it was their side, they would be more than happy to do the whole, like, to have the courts be 6-3 if it was on the Democrat side. And there's all these women who are hysterical because they're like, I'm going to have to go get, like, back alley abortions. I love how women are already, like, planning out their future abortions, too. They're like, yeah, so definitely going to need some abortions, and this is really going to fuck this up. Because I think everybody thinks now that Amy Coney Barrett is on the Supreme Court based on what she said in the past, because everybody calls her, like, she's like a handmaid or whatever. They think that, like, they're going to take away their abortions, which I always try to err on the side of, like, less hysteria. I feel like this has kind of like a hyperbolic thing to think that they're like, oh yeah, that's like they're going to take away your rights to get abortions. I just feel like the country has just gone too far away from that, where they're like, we're going to go back to back alley abortion clinics. It just seems too far-fetched to me. I find that hard to believe. There is a part of me that, maybe in 5 years from now when they're like outlaw all abortions, I'm like, well, I'll be damned. They really did. They were all right. They took away their abortions. But like so I was like going through Twitter and there was this group and they're like, we're trying to raise money. They're basically like, give us $5 donations because we want to put this commercial on the air as a response to Amy Coney Barrett getting nominated. And so basically it's a commercial. It's like a woman and her daughter and they're like driving in a car and they get pulled over. And the cops like, and they're very nervous. And the cop's like, so where are you going? And they're like, oh, we're just driving around. And then the cop goes, he goes to the girl, like she's like a teenager in the front seat. He goes, you're not pregnant, are you? Which is like, what an insane question. Like, imagine there's people right now who honestly believe that like the next step, Amy Coney Barrett is elected or whatever, is now Amy Coney Barrett is now on the Supreme Court, and then the next thing is cops pulling over women randomly and then just being like, you're not pregnant, are you? Please step out of the car. And so literally in this commercial, they're like, you're not pregnant, are you? And then she's like, no, I'm not pregnant. He goes, all right. And they like pull them out of the car, like literally like opens the door. He's like, get out of the car. And then like, what? So like they give you a fucking roadside pregnancy test. He goes, you're pregnant. And then where were you going? Were you going? They basically are accusing them of like, what are you going to the border? Because I guess they're like accusing them of they're trying to go to a different state or maybe to Canada, my home country, to get some of those sweet, sweet Canadian abortions that we have. It just seems so far-fetched. Like everybody is just, they're not going to repeal Roe versus Wade. They're definitely not going to make it, obviously like they could maybe make it so that, and I know they do make it that some states, because I believe it's a state issue. So it's like some states make it harder than others to get abortions. And you're like, well, I might have to go to a different state. But the idea that they're like cops are just pulling women over and they're you're not pregnant, are you? And then she'd just be like, I'm a trans man. No, I cannot get pregnant. But like the idea, like she didn't look pregnant at all either. Like she just looked normal. And they're just suspicious. They're acting funny. So it's not like remember when like those people used to be like fucking had like a pound of Coke in the trunk back in the day, and now it's just like, oh, what are you, pregnant? It's pretty crazy. I'm gonna put it up on the video of this if you want to watch the video on YouTube. I've been posting episodes on YouTube. You're watching this on YouTube right now for some people, but just a crazy idea. And then all the left people are like, well, don't you worry, because all the people on the left, they're convinced that they're going to win the election, which I would probably agree with. I mean, it's not a slam dunk, but then they're like, well, they're going to expand the court, like they're going to like that whole thing where they're like, well, we're going to just, yeah, fine, whatever. We're not going to forget this when we win the election, and then we're going to add 50 new seats to the Supreme Court, and they're all going to be liberals, and they're going to be in there for life. And then you're like, yeah, but what kind of game is that? Because then you're like, okay, you're going to add all these seats, and then eventually the Republicans will be in power again at some point, and then they're going to just be like, okay, we're adding 100 seats. And then like, so what? Eventually there's no point to any of this. And then also the funny thing would just be like, if they don't win, like if Trump gets reelected and he goes, you know what? I like that idea of the expanding the court. You know what? Because like Ilhan Omar and AOC, they basically tweeted out tonight. They tweeted like, expand the courts. They want to expand the courts. So, and Trump is such a troll that like, I just love the possibility that Trump wins. He goes, you know what? I really like this idea of expanding the court. We really should do that. And he goes, you know what? We'll get, I don't know, maybe 6-9 more justices, all Republican, of course, just to fuck with them. That would be great. I don't know if it's going to happen. Hopefully not. It's going to be a crazy week. We got 1 week. If you're listening to this, I believe it will be 1 week until election night. Who knows if we're going to find out, or when we'll find out. But you know what? It'll be an interesting week leading up to this. Are we going to find out new shit? There was a debate. I was in Washington, D.C. last week. Had a fun time. Nothing political. Just there to have some fun. It was DC was actually crazy. So we went to DC, me and Ryan Long, and it was like way more like I thought it was going to be like, oh, fucking it's DC, all these politicians, they're like, they live there and everything would be open. Everything was closed. Like it was, especially near the White House. So we were walking around near the White House because of all of like the Black Lives Matter protests, all the George Floyd stuff or whatever. So basically tons of shit's boarded up. Like if you go walk around all around the White House, tons of stores are boarded up. It's pretty much like a ghost town. Like nothing's open. It's honestly like shocking. It's like, it's what New York was, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months ago. Like it was honestly like, I couldn't believe it. Like everything's closed. You can barely even see the White House. There's like 1-2 spots. There's one spot on the south lawn or like very southern point, like south of the White House, where you can just see a little bit of the White House. And then on the other side of it, if you're at this one intersection, you can just see like a sliver of it because so they have like the normal, wrought iron fences. And then they put up this like there's walls where people couldn't jump over it. And then they just like kept extending these like fucking barriers. And so it's like, now it's basically like, I don't know, it feels like you're a mile away essentially. And then everybody's covering this fence with like, just anti-Trump, like George, like literally like there's posters outside of like, the perimeter of what's essentially now the White House, because it's like the closest point you get to the White House that are like, Trump is a murderer, fuck him, he should die. You're like, literally says like the president should die. like outside of like essentially the White House. But so yeah, it was like all shut down, all of DC. The monuments were open. That was cool. When saw the Washington Monument. Pretty nice monument. Highly recommend. That was pretty much it. But we watched the debate, the last debate. I guess debate number 2. Technically should have been the third one, but the second one got canceled. And it was, you could tell Trump knew he fucked up the last one too, because he was like, this is just a normal debate. He was like not a dick. He wasn't being an asshole the whole time. They were just kind of going back and forth. The best part about the whole thing, I don't even really want to drum it up because I don't really care that much about the debate. I would say that Trump won it for sure. I think he got destroyed in the first one, but like he did it to himself. Really, it's not like Biden destroyed him. He just was a fucking prick, and that did it to himself. This one, I definitely think he won by just like going after by just not talking about Hunter Biden, because you're like, literally, you're like, what? So you basically like are on the, are on, I would say like not life support, but you're not gonna be like your son's a drug addict. Like, who gives a shit? And all that, these videos are coming out. Their son's just like banging prostitutes and smoking crack and stuff, and you're like, okay, well, we're not voting for him, so. But anyways, he did talk about stuff. But the best part was he was talking about they brought up like the kids in cages and all that stuff, and then he just kept on being like, well, who built the cages? And like Joe Biden would be like, that's not the point. And he'd be like, well, who built the cages? And then they brought up Trump starts talking about, well, yeah, these kids get taken over the border by coyotes. That's like, he kept saying that. He goes, coyotes are taking the kids over the borders. Coyotes referring to like, it's like the profession. I don't know if it's a profession, but it's like, people whose job it is. You pay them money. They're called coyotes, and then they sneak you into the United States. They're not literal coyotes. But so, Twitter obviously is during the election. There's a lot going on Twitter, or not during the election, during the debate. There's a lot going on Twitter. But so this woman, her name is Darshan Kendrick. She is, I believe she's like a congresswoman or something. Let's see what she is. She's a corporate attorney and investment advisor, Georgia state representative, chief deputy whip of the Georgia House Dems. So she's like in politics. She's a lawyer. And then she's something in politics. I don't know what exactly. But so she tweets. This is like one of the craziest ratios I've ever seen. If you don't know what a ratio is, basically on Twitter, there's 3 possible responses. You can either favorite a tweet, you can retweet a tweet, or you can comment. When the comments are like way higher than the retweets or the favorites, it's called the ratio. It's basically people being like, you're a fucking idiot. So this is what she tweeted. She goes, did at real Donald Trump just say 545 kids they can't find their parents came over through cartels and coyotes? How the hell does a coyote bring a whole human across the border? Lord, stop talking. Right? So she tweets this. It goes like mega viral, but not for the right reason. Literally, and like they're really funny because like then all the memes start coming up, and it's literally like a Mexican child riding a coyote, and she got killed. But like part of me is like when I see stuff like this, and I'm like, because it's funny. You're like, it's obviously a funny thing to be like, haha, you're so dumb. How do you not know what a coyote is? Especially when you're like. You're in government or whatever, and you care about politics. You're watching the debate. You know how many people I know couldn't give a fuck about the debate and didn't watch it? But so people were just eviscerating her, absolutely eviscerating her. And, but then like, there's this element to Twitter where like, it just starts turning shitty. Like where you're just like, okay, like she's like, there's just to give you an idea here. There are 23,000 retweets, which I imagine 20,000 of them are like, this chick is fucking stupid. 5,000 likes, 65,000 comments. So just imagine like, you make a little flub on Twitter. Now, obviously she did have the option to delete the tweet. She chose not to, because she's probably like, whatever. But it is just like this crazy negative thing where you're like, okay, I made a flub. Like everybody says stupid shit. And then not only that, so she says this dumbass thing. And then just like the pile on starts, like everybody's just going in on her so hard, being like, how stupid are you, blah, blah, blah. But then they start going through all her other tweets. So like her notifications must just be like nonstop just hate for like a dumb thing she said, which is like, it wasn't like she didn't say something like racist or mean. All she said was something just idiotic. She was like, how does a coyote, like, it's something that, like, I don't know, if you were watching the debate with your 6-year-old and then your 6-year-old's like, how does a coyote bring a child over the border? And you'd be like, oh, son, that's adorable. But she's an adult. And I guess it was not adorable to these people because they fucking lost it. And then they basically just, and now, like, even if she tweets, this is a week ago, and even if she tweets to, I'm sure she got a million, like, this is the thing too, is like, that comes with, lots of death threats and like all sorts of stuff. But the thing is, like, they don't, it doesn't just go away right away. It's just like, even if she tweets today, it's probably just like tons of people being like, you fucking bitch, remember about the coyotes? That gaffe you made about coyotes a week ago? You're so stupid. It was a lot. Darshan Kendrick, her Darshun. I'm probably like not helping anything, but it's because people are going to watch this and be like, yeah, let's go fucking comment, call her a dumb bitch. But she was getting a lot of that. It is remarkable that she works in politics, though, and you're like, you really don't know that? I mean, I guess she works in Georgia, which is, I guess they don't have, it's not on the Mexican border, so they don't have as much of a concern with that kind of thing. Let's stick with Twitter world. I spoke about this actually last week briefly. 50 Cent, rapper 50 Cent. He got in a lot of trouble because he said that due to Biden's tax plan, he is voting for Trump. At which point, and I didn't even know this, I think I maybe knew this, but so his ex-girlfriend, Chelsea Handler, comedian and talk show host, I guess that's how you describe her, Chelsea Handler, she was on Jimmy Fallon's show, and she said this. I'm going to play this right now. Go.
You heard about my ex-boyfriend, right? 50 Cent and his support of Donald Trump.
Yeah, what's going on between you? I saw your tweets and I go, wait, what's happening? Because you said he was your favorite ex-boyfriend, and then what does he do? He's supporting Trump?
He says he doesn't want to pay 62% of taxes, which, by the way, isn't a plan of Joe Biden's. That's a lie. So he doesn't want to pay 62% of taxes because he doesn't want to go from being 50 cent to 20 cent. And I had to remind him that he was a black person, so he can't vote for Donald Trump, and that he shouldn't be influencing an entire swath of people who may listen to him because he's worried about his own personal pocketbook. So I haven't heard back from him yet, but I am willing to, seal the deal in more ways than one if he changes his mind and publicly denounces Donald Trump. I might be willing to go for another spin, if you know what I'm talking about.
All right. So Chelsea Handler says that, and she basically did the thing that the gaffe that Joe Biden made, where he goes, if you vote for Donald Trump, you ain't black. Which, again, it's like, these people, they think they're so like liberal and not racist, but then they're actually like, you can't just tell somebody who they can vote for based on the color of their skin. Like, black people are not some sort of monolith. They're allowed to change their minds and they're allowed to vote for who they want to. And the idea that you're like, but so anyways, so she's like, the funniest part to me is that the feeling where she goes like, oh, I'm going to entice 50 Cent to change who he's voting for by letting him, like, what is she like? She's in her mid to late. I think she's 45. So she's like, I'm a 45-year-old woman, and I'm gonna entice rapper 50 Cent, rich and famous, could probably fuck 10 models if he wanted to. And he's like, you know what, 50, if you just retract what you said and just vote for who I want you to vote for, I'll let you take this for another spin. Insane, just insanity. I mean, she's an attractive woman, but the idea that would be the thing that 50 Cent goes, oh shit, I didn't know that was on the table. I'm pretty hard up for getting pussy, so I'll do that. But anyway, so then he replies. This was a few days ago. He goes, a what? another spin with a bunch of emojis, and then he goes, "Fuck Donald Trump. I never liked him. For all I know, he had me set up and had my friend Angel Hernandez killed, but that's history. LOL." Which is a joke. He's not being serious. I mean, I'm sure he's saying "fuck Donald Trump" just because whatever to get people to leave him alone. But he's clearly like being like, "Thanks for the another spin, Chelsea." But yeah, that's not really doing it for me right now. And then she replies, "Honey, does this tweet mean we can count on a vote for you for at Joe Biden? I'm happy to discuss this with you privately. My phone number is still the same. Yours isn't. I've tried calling you." It's like, yeah, he doesn't want to talk to you. He's probably like, you were probably fucking insane and annoying and when you dated, and he's just like, God damn. He's like, just leave me alone. He's probably just trying to be more civil about this or whatever. I don't know. But the idea that she's like, you're not allowed to vote for Donald Trump. You're black. Lots of black people vote for Donald Trump. I'm sure. And I don't want to like, cast aspersions or whatnot, but a lot of people vote for Donald Trump there's a lot of people who are single issue voters. As much as everybody thinks there's like, oh my God, there's all these issues at play. There's so many issues right now. Coronavirus handling. You know what a lot of people vote? The reason they vote is who lets them keep the most amount of their money. A lot of people vote that way. And I am sure there are a lot of wealthy black people, like, players in like fucking the NBA or something who are just like, they would never say, oh, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump, but they're probably just like, I don't give a shit. I'm just vote. Like, I'm not saying they're all like that, but I'm sure lots of them are just like, I don't care. Like, not even players in the NBA, I use them as a example, obviously, because they're black, but I'm sure like all professional athletes who are like, yeah, they vote for probably Trump because they're like, he lets me keep a lot of my money. But it's like when a white guy in the NHL does it, people are like, oh, typical white guy in the NHL voting for Donald Trump. Who could have seen that coming? But then like a black guy, people are like, how dare you vote for Donald Trump? You're betraying your entire race. And he's just like, I'm just like everybody else. I just want to fucking hang on to my money. What's wrong with that? But then they're like, all the other stuff. But, so I'm sure there's not. I wonder if you saw the ballots of, I mean, for one, I wonder what percentage actually vote. And then like how it goes with the, actual percentage of just people who vote. And then at what point, I bet you it's pretty common, but I bet you it would skew a bit Republican just because these people make so much money that they would almost skew towards the candidate that lets them keep their money. They would just obviously never admit it. So interesting stuff with that. I like to avoid talking about politics, but it's just impossible. So I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to, keep talking about politics and, have some other fun stuff. But this was, again, back to politics. Politics. This is just funny premise here. But so Trump had a rally on the weekend. On Saturday, and then he always has like the plants behind him. He has all these people that they're like meticulously like set up to be like specifically there. So he has these people behind him, and they're a bunch of nuns. They're MAGA nuns. They're literally like dressed in all their nun things, but they have these masks that say MAGA on them, and it makes sense because you're like, he's a very pro-life president, and they're again single issue voters, so they're probably like the only thing I care about is like religious freedoms and stuff like pro like abortion laws or whatever. So anyway, so they're behind him, and then this guy basically goes on Twitter. His name is Peter Vroom. I don't know who he is. He's like a Twitter guy. I don't know. And he basically like finds like a photo of the nuns from like the rally and cross-references them with this like what is it, like monastery or whatever, wherever nuns live in Cincinnati. And then he's basically like, here they are, just so you know. He's like, I don't want you to do anything with this information. So he's basically like, he's not doxing them, but you're like, what is the purpose of like calling them out and being like, here they are, this is where you can find them? And it's like, the nuns get fired? I feel like, if anything, that's pretty on brand for a nun to support the pro-life candidate. But like, what's this guy trying to do? Like, is he trying to get them fired, or is he trying to get them fucked up? It's hard to know, but it is funny to try and dox a nun. Like, that's essentially what he's doing. He's just basically doxing a nun. which is hilarious. I hope they get their comeuppance for supporting the president of the United States. That's fucked up. I talk about this too. Actually, speaking of abortion, I'll talk about this and then we'll move on. Kanye, yay, easy. Made it on Joe Rogan. I talked about this last week where I was like, I not seriously, but I was like, there's a conspiracy to keep Kanye West off of Joe Rogan so that he doesn't get nominated for president. And the conspiracy was that young Jamie, the producer, got COVID, and then Joe Rogan had to shut it down. But then they brought in Brian Redband, and boom, Kanye showed up, did an interview. I listened to it. It was a lot. It was a lot for sure. It was a lot of Kanye just blowing smoke up his own ass. He's obviously a very religious guy. He's basically like a lot of the stuff he says. He's like, you seem like a pretty like just standard conservative dude. In a lot of ways, you're like, he's just like a Christian conservative. But so he starts talking about, coronavirus, and then he goes, if you haven't listened to it, he kept referencing the A word. He kept saying the A word, and I was like, what's the A word? I thought it was like addiction, and then it's abortion. He's like, so he's very like, he's super anti-abortion. He's basically on that like Candace Owens thing where Candace Owens is like, and he specifically said on Rogan that he's like, people are like, all worried about the coronavirus. He's like, there have been more black children killed by abortion since February than all people have died of the coronavirus. And so he's obviously like super anti-abortion. He was talking about all this nonsense and then so Joe Rogan starts like grilling him on like, so yeah, if you were president, like what would your platform be and all this stuff. And he had like a lot of like some of his main answers. He goes like, Joe Rogan's like, well, what if like they wanted to go to war and you had to go to war? And he goes, I just like, I just surround myself with the best possible people, which you're like, yeah, that's a good answer. But then he's like, and then I'll just do what God tells me. And you're like, that's not that good of an answer. Like if you just put, because that's the thing. I mean, the hard part about being the president is that at some point there is a decision that you need to make. As much as you get input from all these people, you got to be the guy to be like, yes or no. But so he seems very serious. He's just like, yeah, I feel like I should be the leader of the world. And he had some interesting takes on stuff. It was a lot of blowing smoke up his own ass. But then again, like he has a pretty big ego, but then you're like, also, how can he not have a big ego? But it's also clear that like his ego helped get him where he is. Like, he's straight up said, he's like, I'm one of the most famous people in the world. And then like, and he's talking about like all this business stuff and how like, working with the Gap and all this shit, and how he's like, he compared himself to Steve Jobs in terms of like how he's like changing shoes and removing laces, and it was interesting. It was an interesting thing. He is he's definitely like a bit out there. He obviously has, I wouldn't say like a mental issue, because it's like, everybody's got something. Like it's nothing to be like concerned about, anything in that capacity. But he's out there. He's definitely out there. It was he's funny. He said some funny things. I don't know how good of a president he would be. I am interested in like if he was to be president, just because they have like they'll have like the G20 summit and there's like 20 world leaders, or like the G8 or whatever, and then there's like everybody's like in the nice suit or whatever, and then there's Kanye in like just a mauve hoodie and just like fucking plain khaki pants, just chilling. But it was a good episode. All in all, do recommend. But also last week I was talking about this last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, but I was talking about the notion where like it just becomes so normal. And I actually, before, like when I was doing prep for this podcast earlier today, I was like, you know what? I noticed, I'm like, I haven't seen fucking someone just get murdered on Twitter. Cause it was like, it's just become so normal where you just log into Twitter and there's just like, boom, there's a video of someone murdered. And then before it fucking, earlier today or, tonight or whatever in Philadelphia, because Philadelphia is currently being like burned to the ground because cops shot this dude. 2 cops shot this black guy who was coming at them with a knife. And the thing is, the sad thing is because it's like his mom is there and they basically shoot him like 12 times, which is like, I don't even know the excessiveness, because I've talked about this on the podcast before. Like, who cares if you shoot him 8 times or 12 times? Like, people like, they get so like, I don't want to say nitpicky with that, but you're like, that's not the issue. But I mean, it seems like he was really just trying to do a suicide by cop, which is like a thing that happens like probably more than people talk about. Just happened to get caught on film. He like, was obviously mentally ill. They like didn't have tasers, and he was just like coming at them with a knife. And it's just like one of those things where, it seems like he was trying to get himself killed. Like that's what it felt like watching this video is he was trying to get himself killed. He succeeded, unfortunately, but now it gets, painted as like a racial thing because the cops are white. And I don't even know if the cops were black it would matter because it would still just be like cops killing but it's not even I was going to say an unarmed black man, but he's not unarmed. He's definitely armed. So it's not that happening. But anyway, so currently the city of Philadelphia is just getting fucking lit up. We'll see what it's like in the morning. Like when you're listening to this, it'll probably be a bit of a different scenario, but I mean, it could be in terms of it could be better or worse. I really don't know. But yeah, it's crazy, and I was like, fuck! Finally, 1 week where this doesn't happen, and then boom, happens again. What to talk about next? Oh, we'll do a couple coronavirus things. I haven't really talked about the coronavirus stuff yet on this episode. This is an insane story that I can't believe exists. So the a federal health agency was basically going to do a campaign. This is like in the U.S. This just came out today, where there is going to be $250 million in taxpayer money. And what they were going to do is they were going to offer special vaccine trials to Santa Claus performers. So it was going to be to Santa Clauses, Mrs. Clauses, and elves. It's basically like in the Trump administration because they wanted, I guess they wanted to like save Christmas, basically like to save Christmas and then also like show like the benefits of COVID-19. So they were going to basically make a deal with like mall Santas where you're like, okay, if you guys want to keep your gig as a mall Santa, you have to be a guinea pig for the coronavirus vaccine, which is I like honestly read this. I was like, is this real? This can't be real. But it was completely real. Like someone had an idea. You go, look, we're going to offer to save Christmas by forcing all the Santas and Mrs. Clauses and elves to take a vaccine just to show people that it works, and then we'll get the word. They were gonna like this is like just the way the government just blows insane sums of money on just the dumbest fucking ideas. Like the idea, imagine you're like a Santa Claus and you're like, yeah, I like just do this to make some extra money at the holidays. Like I'm sure they like it, but I'm sure they're not like, yeah, I don't want to be like a guinea pig for coronavirus vaccine. For what an insane idea. Insane. And then over in Europe, another coronavirus thing. So I guess they're getting hit kind of hard with second wave or whatever is what it's looking like. But so in Wales, grocery stores and stores are basically I don't know if they're being forced to do this or if I think they're being kind of forced. Is they're basically being like, you're not like, in order to stop people from like going to the grocery store and just like going to the grocery store for not a good reason other than to buy food. They're basically like cordoning off all non-essential goods. So basically they're like, hey, you need like anything that they consider like non-essential, like to the point where like someone was like arrested for, a shopper was fined for buying wine and potato chips because they're like, that's non-essential. So you're going to lock people in their fucking houses. And then they're like, okay, well, if you're going to lock me in my house, I at least want to like drink some wine and chill and watch some TV. And then they're like, yeah, that's non-essential. You could only buy like what, potatoes and fucking, it's crazy. If they tried to do that here, that's the kind of thing is like, that's like, I'm not like a big gun guy, but I'm like, sometimes I'm happy that America has all these guns because that would not fly here. If they tried to do that here where they go, yeah, we're going to not allow people to buy. Like, they're going to be like, you can go into the Trader Joe's, but certain things are non-essential. You can't buy them. Like alcohol, people would be like, we're about to shoot up this place if you don't fucking remove that goddamn cellophane wrapper over all this bullshit. All right, we got a few more things, and then I'm going to wrap this bad boy up. This is from Canada. This is great. Jessica Yaniv. I don't know if you remember her, the transgender. She's a transgender woman from British Columbia. She rose to fame by suing all these like waxing places because she would set up a wax And they're like, we're female only wax places because like, and in her mind, she's like, they were racist or not racist. They were, like, basically they were a bunch of prudes. I don't know exactly what it was, but basically, you know, she would say based on the religion, they're discriminating because they're like, we don't wax men. We only do women. And like, she's basically blaming it on their like religions or whatever. But so she would make these like appointments for wax jobs, go into these places and be like, yeah, I have a penis and male genitals. And they'll be like, yeah, we don't do that. And she's like, but I'm a woman. They're like, yeah, but our issue is more with the actual genitals, which are the genitals of a man. And she's like, no, these are the genitals of a woman. And they're like, no, we don't do that. And then she like basically took them to these like, Canada has these human rights tribunals, and she took them to the tribunals. She lost, thankfully. But now she's back up to her old tricks. I kind of like appreciate her a bit because she's like, even though she's like clearly insane, she's a bit of a troll, which is kind of funny. But so she basically, she like, because you know, like some transgendered women are actually like very attractive. You're like, oh, that's, you know, you look like a beautiful woman. She is disgusting by all. She looks like me, honestly. Like she looks like if I just put on a fucking grew my hair out and grew my hair blonde, like that's what she looks like. I don't know who that's more offensive to, me or her, but so she entered a beauty pageant, a women's only beauty pageant in Toronto. And then basically didn't mention that she was transgender with male genitals on her application as it went against the policy. And then they found out because she told them. And and then they're like, yeah, you can't be in our beauty pageant. And now she's seeking $10,000 in damages for injury to dignity and feelings and requesting that the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario ruled that an organization cannot refuse service to someone just because that person has male genitalia. I mean, really, they should refuse service to her. The fact that she looks like me in a dress and she wants to be in a beauty pageant. Like, I know we're in 2020 and we're kind of on this thing where you go, anything is beautiful, but me in a dress is not a beautiful woman. I don't give a shit what anybody thinks. And maybe I'm a fucking caveman with this thought, and that's fine. Honestly, I'm totally fine with that. If people are being like, I'm a bad person, but me in a dress is not an attractive woman, which is basically what she looks like. But like, I do appreciate her trolling. Like, if she's doing this to troll, good for her. But then she's also like, she's just like suing this business for 10 grand. But in Canada, we have these stupid human rights tribunals, which are just a complete waste of time and money. But anyways, maybe I'll follow up with this in the future, to see how her beauty pageant success is going. My guess is, like, she enters, they're like, yeah, we'll just, doesn't even matter. You don't need to show up. You came in last. She keeps, it's so funny. Yeah, and this is not the second time, too. She ran, I don't know what happened with this, but she ran, it says here, not 2019, oh no, she ran for 2020 Miss BC, Miss Teen BC, and Mrs. BC. I guess she's running for Miss BC as in Miss British Columbia. But just the idea that someone who looks like that would be in a beauty pageant. Like, maybe I should, you know what? Maybe the joke's on me. Maybe I should be entering beauty pageants because there's all these wins that I could be getting that I just don't even know about because I'm so close-minded about this stuff. I'm just so close-minded. And then last thing, and you know, I guess this is the Halloween episode because when I come back next week, it will be, I think the next episode is coming out on Election Day. So that'll be exciting. I wonder, should I change that up? No, I'm just going to, it'll come out on Election Day. That'll be fun. But so this is from, I believe this is from Canada. So a local school, this is Halloween related because, you know, and I just had, if you're watching this, check out on my Instagram or Ryan Long's YouTube. We had a funny Halloween related sketch that just came out today. But so this was a school board sent this memo out banning kids from dressing in a gender other than their own. So it says, this year we will offer students the option to dress in costumes or no costume or wear fall colors of their choice. As a reminder, at our school, the costumes would have no replica weapons, no novelty face masks, health and safety face coverings only, no costumes that depict the traditional attire of an ethnic, racial, or marginalized group identity, no dressing as a gender other than your own, no stigmatizing those with mental health struggles or condoning ableism. I mean, literally, like, any superhero condones ableism. Like, if you're, like, like a superhero, they all condone ableism. Like they have superpowers, like they're a one above regular. And then they have this gender expression Halloween memo addendum. And it says, and it's like this basically thing that like lets you figure it out. It says celebrating gender expressivity. Was it what it is and what it is not? It is expansive self-expressivity. It is not something static and unchanging. And then they basically go through this thing. There's one that goes, it is a personal choice rooted in self-concept and self-identification. It is not laughable. Sometimes it's laughable, not in a mean way. It's just legitimately funny. It is an internal experience that has elements of outward expression. It is not any of your business. It is indisputable. It is not something for you to investigate. So here's my question. So what if you're a kid who's a boy, and then you're like, I want to dress up as a girl because I'm like, I think I'm a girl. And then they're like, well, you have to prove that you're a girl. You can't just be a girl for Halloween. Like, is they like, look, we want to see evidence that you've been dressing up as a girl all the time. What if you're like, I'm non-binary and I'll sometimes dress as a girl, sometimes dress as a boy? Do you get the pass? And then like, does that count for like, say if you're a girl and you want to dress up as Batman or Spider-Man and you're like, well, technically that's not your gender? Or are they saying specifically like, you just can't be like, I'm a boy? Because first off, that is not a fucking costume. I never remember when I was a kid, someone was just like straight up like, I'm a girl, I'm a boy. It would be like, I'm a princess or I'm a cowboy or something. Like, so straight up a girl is not allowed to be a cowboy. That's crazy. But I mean, I guess they just have to cover all their bases so as to not get in a shit ton of trouble. I don't know. It just seems not fun anymore. I'm actually pumped. I'm going out for Halloween in Texas this weekend, going to Texas for the first time ever. If you live there, Austin, don't come say hi. I'm not going to be. I mean, I guess you could. We're not doing comedy or anything. Just going to hang out and have some fun. Going to go out, watch some live music, get COVID, all the fun stuff in Texas that can be done. Anyways, that's been the episode. Thanks very much, everybody who's been listening and supporting. If you enjoy the episode, please, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and give it a like and, leave me a review, all that fun stuff. Until next week, bye-bye.